The lay of the land for Dig has really changed in the past year or two. When Dig launched, you became a competitor for Google in terms of traffic flow. And now there's also Twitter and Facebook. Where do you see Dig now?
Wow. Well, I mean, we're about 40 million users today, right? About 20,000 submissions a day go into the Dig system. It's certainly achieved huge things for us. It's what we set out to do. But we have a ways to go. I think that we've been focused a lot on sort of revenue. The Dig Ads project you may have heard about. We released that, and it's doing well. Got 2 to 3% click-through rate in that stuff. And that could be a business for us, just on its own. But we're really, we want to take it to the next level now, do something that really takes us from that 40 million world to 100 million world. The 20,000 submissions to 100,000 submissions, or 50 topics to 5,000 topics.
Yeah, I think when you look at Dig, we've pretty much stayed the same over the last couple of years. The focus has gone into the ads platform and a few other key things that we've launched. But for us, it's really, this next big launch is focused on revamping the website itself, the destination site, and rolling out a bunch of new features around that. So getting better at making it easier for people to submit content, just put in a URL and it goes into the system. Topics that lay outside of the standard fixed taxonomy that we have today, so you can get into rock climbing or the whole long tail of content. So there's a bunch of work to be done.
Right.
How much of that's coming from Jeffrey Kalmakoff's joining you?
Well, Jeffrey's huge. Let's be straight.
Jeffrey was one of the founders of Threadless, and he recently joined Dig as Chief of User Experience.
Yeah, that's right. And so he came in and basically, just at this time that we needed to make this big change. It's like, for example, on this topics issue, it's like today there's this one-size-fits-all homepage. It's a steady stream for everybody. How do you redesign the site so that you can have a homepage for every topic that isn't necessarily tied to that homepage, or a custom experience for every user? And he thinks that way. He thinks, from a user perspective. He's been cranking out a ton of material.
He's only been with us for a couple months now, and he's already jumped in just like full steam. So we've got a lot of work out of him already.
Yes, thank you, Jeffrey. Absolutely. And that's just from our perspective, part of a lot of changes at Dig. Jeffrey brings with him sort of a different feel. A lot of things have to happen in parallel right now. So, we mentioned the topics, instant digging, right? We have to make some changes there. Mm-hmm. All of this stuff really is about sort of faster, more accessible, easier to use, and more compelling reasons to use the site. And so all these changes happen at the same time, and it's a crazy time at Dig right now.
Is Dig Trends the beginning of that?
So Dig Trends was essentially an experiment that I wanted to launch here a few months ago, in that we know that there's always been, around major news events, there's always like a flood of new submissions. So, Michael Jackson passes away, and there's 100, 200 stories submitted within 10, 15-minute window. So what we wanted to be able to do is technically behind the scenes identify when there are certain keywords that are trending higher than others, and then be able to look at all of the URLs that we have submitted and pick out the best ones based on kind of who's digging them behind the scenes and how good those diggers are at finding content that eventually becomes very popular. So what Trends is that we have gotten really good at saying, okay, we believe that this one story is a trending topic, but we want your help in vetting that. And so what we do is several times a day, 2 or 3 times a day, we'll take a story and push it out to our Twitter feed to bring in a bunch of users, and then put it in a box at the very top of the homepage and give people 10 minutes to vote on that story. We take out the submitter, we take out the dig count. We basically want it to be a blind vote so that people come in, they go out, they evaluate the content, and they come back and dig or bury that story. And then once the clock runs down from 10 minutes to 0, it then says this story was either promoted to the front page or it was buried. And we see 3 or 4 new trends per day, of which probably half get promoted, the other half are buried.
Right, and that's... Oh. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I was just going to say, the noise out there is extreme. I think one of Dig's primary advantages is it offers that other layer of vetting on top of all of this, stuff that's being retweeted, this huge volume of stuff that you need to make sense of. And Dig's always been good at that, but for a trending story, what's funny is we add that layer of vetting, it takes longer to get to the homepage. Whereas now with this system, we can identify it, elevate it much faster, and get that breaking story out to the public.
Right. So a great example is, we can identify something at 5 digs and pull it to the front page and have it on the homepage in 20 minutes versus having to wait for something to get, 50, 75, 100 digs before promoting it to the front page.
Right.
Now, a lot of, my Mac, my Windows machine, my Linux machine, my iPhone, my Android, they all know where I am. Are you going to start using that data?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing, I would say, in this next set of releases for Dig that pulls location information necessarily. However, there has been a lot of interest in digging locations. We've seen that for a long time. So
yeah, one question that came from Twitter earlier today was whether or not you guys were going to have regional homepages.
Well, we've looked at, actually behind the scenes, Anton Kast, who runs our R&D department, basically has created different home pages for different countries.
Right.
And we know that based on those digging activities, this isn't something we've exposed yet, but I mean, you're going to get a different set of stories in India than you would in the United States versus the UK.
Or possibly Detroit versus New York.
But we're just not to the point. We've got other bigger issues to tackle before we get there.
Right. This issue of locality really fits in an umbrella of issues that include the topics that we mentioned earlier. How do you have a story appear on the homepage of a country or a specific locality that may be popular for that small niche community that isn't necessarily right for the homepage? And we're fixing that now. And once that's successful, I think it opens the door to a lot of things like locality.
So you're gathering a lot of data about us and about countries and localities. Have you ever thought about releasing that?
We do release it right now. Yeah, it's under your profile. You can export all of your data about all your past
more
digging activity.
as an API.
Or like some kind of...
Like
we have
trending keywords and...
Oh, the trending keywords. Yeah, trending keywords hasn't been added to the API yet, but everything else pretty much is. We've launched our writable API in a limited kind of beta right now. And then every other endpoint is pretty much there from the read standpoint.
Right. Yeah, I think packaging the data in a way that's interesting, on our site, you can expect some of that, particularly where publishers are concerned going into next year. But it's not, I wouldn't say it's something that we get a lot of requests for, anything heavily detailed. We're certainly not going to sell data in a traditional sense.
But from a user standpoint, I mean, we've offered that feed for a long time to export all of your digs and all of your attention data because it's your data. I mean, you helped us build the site by digging and commenting on stories, but you should be able to take that anywhere you want to go.
Yep.
Now, you mentioned your ad system, how that could be a separate business.
Yeah.
Is that something you've explored, syndicating that out?
Yeah, we certainly have. I mean, I think the number one goal for Dig ads and Dig content ads is to really monetize our site really efficiently first. But we get a ton of requests because, I mean, it's powerful stuff. When you're getting that kind of targeting, that kind of click-through rate, I mean, normal kind of run-of-the-mill click-through rate is like 0.1%, and we're getting 2 to 3%. So, I mean, that's an order of magnitude better performance. So if I can push that out to a third-party publisher and help them monetize their site, well, that just, I think, continues the symbiotic relationship between us and the publishers.
I've been really excited about the Dig ads because it's, for the first time ever, as ads get buried and people say, this is actually a really crappy ad, I hate this, it sucks, we charge the advertisers more money when their ads start sucking.
Yes.
So I think that's just like, that's the way it should be, right? If you have really crappy creative or a crappy product, like you should be priced out of the system, which I think is awesome.
See, that's the truth. The advertisers actually like that, which sounds counterintuitive. They like it because if they've got $50,000 they're spending on an ad buy and they don't have to spend it all, they get priced out of the system and can spend it on a better targeting somewhere else.
Revamp their messaging, whatever it takes.
Yeah, that's what we hope. We hope that the ads become better and better content.
Survival of the fittest.
Yes.
Now, you just acquired your personal project, WeFollow. And you
acquisition is a strong term.
I
folded it into
the
Dig.
domain over.
Right, exactly. Yes, WeFollow was a great little fun project. It was a Twitter directory where everyone can go in and add themselves to different tags. So you can basically say, I'm into rock climbing, into tea, into whatever, and you get categorized in those tags. It's grown to over 800,000 people have gone and added themselves to the directory. It was really kind of taking off on its own. And we started looking at the data, what people were tagging themselves as, and realized that that also can play into kind of this broader topic structure that we're getting into. And so it just made sense to combine the two.
Right. Yeah.
So we're about halfway through the interview, and I know a lot of people are just curious about entrepreneurship. You two are both serial entrepreneurs. So if you were starting a company, another question from Twitter earlier today, and I foolishly didn't copy the username of the people who submitted them, my apologies. If you were starting a company today and you couldn't use your name, you were an unknown, how would you go about doing that?
I think you have to be really scrappy. I think that I've always been a fan of solutions that rented solutions like hardware. That when I first started Dig, I was renting $99 a month servers. Now there's a lot cheaper and easier ways to do that with some of the services that Amazon offers, from as far as scaling your data storage to on-demand servers. Also, I think you have to, when you have a very limited budget to get off the ground, I recommend just not trying to hire any PR, but doing it all on your own. And when you go out to these events, such as something like this, you throw your own random little parties aside from the event, but not with the event, because you'd probably pay too much money to sponsor an event. And go in and try and meet the influencers and people that will help you get the word out there. Hack the press. Go to TechCrunch and find the most junior writer there is out there. Talk to them. Don't try and approach Arrington. I mean, he's a dick, but I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. Come on. We all know Arrington.
Oh, boy. There we go.
He loves it. He loves the attention.
Oh, come on.
We love giving him shit. Seriously, though, I mean, find the most junior writer at TechCrunch and go and approach them and say, hey, this is my product. This is what I'm talking about. And you have a lot better chance of getting an article written about your company.
I have some thoughts on this, too. I feel like the world's changed so much since even we started Dig in terms of the cost of prototyping, right? I mean, the problem with a lot of, sort of the barrier to entry to startups for a lot of entrepreneurs, particularly young entrepreneurs, it's their first time, is just getting the capital together to get something started. Well, now it's so cheap that my argument is if you can't prototype it without investment, what's wrong? Why is it so complex? Sure, if you're going to build some new piece of hardware, or something like that, fine. But if you're doing something on the web, which we're talking about today, you should be able to prototype this thing for thousands of dollars, not hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then, depending on your preference, if you want to raise that with an angel or you want to raise that with a venture partner, you've got something to show for it. And they'll take a lot less of your company to do it.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of release early, release often, and iterate as fast as possible. So, I mean, I've met so many entrepreneurs that say, oh, I got to get this right, and this has to be perfect. And in reality, you just need to get it shipped and out the door and get it in the hands of users. And you're going to learn so much about what they're actually going to do with your product versus what you think they're going to do, and then go from there.
And would you go it alone if you were starting a new company?
So when you say go it alone, I just want to make sure I know.
Start off as Kevin is known as the founder of Dig.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think there is a benefit, pretty much about the time that you first need to get some external source of funding, or you need to grow your company beyond a certain number of people, to have somebody with you who, if you're not experienced in business, but you can go a long way by yourself. And I would question, really, particularly with all these, like you're saying, the outsourced services, like Amazon and so forth, you can really push that pretty far. You could be a year into your business before you start bringing in some of this external expertise. So, yeah, I mean, why not? Try as far as you can go, but be willing to recognize your own limitations. And if you need to bring in that great marketing person or that great, product person, bring them in when you need them.
Yeah, that's the other thing that worries me, is that you go as far as you can till you can prove what you're doing is working. And then if you just keep going, there'll be other companies that will receive funding and hire teams and develop faster and become serious competition overnight. Right. So yeah. I mean, once you prove the model that it works, you know, I don't know if I would go huge VC rounds of funding, but you know, small angel round to get you to the next level, hire a couple more developers. I really like staging things out over time because, like Jay said earlier, your valuation increases, you give away less of your company.
Right. Huge VC rounds of funding.
Yeah.
Yes.
What opportunities do you see out there for entrepreneurs right now?
Wow.
I'm really bullish on the kind of location-aware, sharing locations, rating location space. I think Foursquare, GoWalla, others in this area are doing really interesting and fun, cool things that are tying kind of gaming elements with where you're at.
Which do you use, GoWalla or Foursquare? I don't want to break Dennis's heart, but...
Well, I'm an investor in Foursquare, so I'll throw that out there. But I definitely play with GoWalla. I think it's also really cool. It's a little bit different use case in my mind.
You know, I think there's. I was talking to actually Michael Arrington about this the other day. The infrastructure changes that have happened that nobody really talks about as much have really opened the door to a whole bunch of new applications. You know, for example, you know, like Simple Geo and these concepts that are built on Cassandra or new back-end infrastructure. You know, Dig has completely reinvented our back-end to be based on Cassandra, moving away from MySQL as the primary data store, and Hadoop and, you know, Tokyo Cabinet and these other concepts. It allows more real-time processing of data, which enables a whole new world of applications. For example, that might be a service on an iPhone. It just handles more people faster. So I think that's a great opportunity to jump on that bandwagon.
Do you have any other plans for a startup or another startup?
I'm pretty busy with Dig right now.
Yeah, I'll stick with Dig myself. You know, Kevin and I, we started 2 companies together, Revision 3 and Dig. And I think when you think about how much work that takes, you really do need to focus. So, you know, but you get to play with other things, which is fun.
Yeah, it's. I think that's where angel investing and advising is just a lot more fun. It's somebody else goes and builds it, and you can just kind of hopefully help them navigate through some of the craziness for the first few months.
Totally.
So you're an investor in Foursquare. Who else are you invested in?
Twitter, Daily Booth, Thread, Ngmoco, there's probably a handful of others.
Don't give it all away.
Yeah, it's on my Crunchbase.
Wow. That's a lot.
They're good companies.
Yeah, am I paying you too much? Is that the deal?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
So, Jay, you recently moved out to San Francisco. How has that changed your working relationship and just how you interact with Dig in general?
It's a huge change. I mean, I said for years, I'm like, oh, I manage Dig over video chat, and I fly in for half the time, and you know, got a great team. Truth is that now that I'm there in person, particularly now that Dig is growing so quickly and there's so much activity, all this new development happening, it makes a huge difference. It just makes me a happier person to be able to interact with them. But I think even more importantly in all that is I have 3 children, my wife and 3 kids I was away from, you know, while we were in New York. I love New York. But seeing my kids every night, that's big. And so, again, happier person. And happier CEO means happier employees, right?
You liked partying a lot when you came out to San Francisco.
It's true. It was kind of nice, you know, that lifestyle.
He forgets that part of the...
Yeah. I don't know if my liver agreed with it, but...
Looks like your Arrington is a dick comment's getting retweeted a bit.
Oh, God.
Oh,
Kevin.
Geez. Are you kidding me?
Kevin.
Now I have to deal with
control.
like 6 more months of crappy like TechCrunch articles.
Impulse control.
I got to give him a call afterwards.
I mean, for crying out loud.
So we have to wrap this up. Anything else you'd like to say?
Thanks for having us.
We're hiring at Dig. So please, jobs@dig.com.
Sweet.
All right.
Cool.
Thanks
so much.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.